clearly you're not walking alone on the street. Like, that doesn't happen. And it's not really a walking city either, so everyone's in a car, but the cars lock automatically. There are spikes on the walls surrounding each houses, or electric fences. There are bars on the windows, and there are panic buttons in every single room of the house. So that's something that you have to live with. Then you choose to be very stressed, or you just live with it and continue living. But there are a couple of rules that you are told, and you have to learn when you arrive, clearly. And I was at an age where I didn't need my independence, which was great. I think had I been a teenager, it would have been very, very different. Difficult, and probably much harder. Where my parents told me when they'd go out for dinners with friends, sometimes the other parents would leave at 4 a.m. to go pick up their kids at the exit of the club, because there was no way they were going to spend 5 minutes alone at 4 a.m. outside. So it's adapting on that way. Yeah. When you're younger and you don't need to hang outside alone or other, it's fine. But it also means that you're constantly at a friend's house here and there. That's how you meet your friends, which is nice.
It's funny because as I told you, like just we were talking before the recording, and I interviewed like a couple of episodes ago a woman who moved to South Africa also. She did the opposite of you, actually. She started through Japan and then went to South Africa. So it's just like
so she saw the very, very safe side before the opposite.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, she went the other way, and she was explaining a little bit like the same with the case of her daughter being a teenager at that point of time, and how difficult it was for the daughter. Yeah.
Big challenge and struggle to deal with.
She was saying freedom. She was telling the same, like these courses on how to get security, like that they teach you when you arrive to your condo, and they like you live in these houses that are like
it's a gated house. Yeah,
that's exactly. So yeah, it resonates. I heard this story before, but I suppose I don't know how much of it did you really realize being 9 years old.
I mean, people did try to break into the house quite early on, so
okay,
you realize quite soon, and you realize quite soon. And there are a couple of things where, my parents took self-defense classes, and they explained that indeed why the car locks straight away, or that we have to be careful if we're stuck at a red light. If we feel that we're followed, we just have to go through. And you hear these stories about carjackings and hijackings. Luckily, nothing ever happened to us, but so some relatives did, so some friends of theirs were hijacked, and they tell you how to react. And so it's part of the thing. When we arrive, they explained to me, like, in case this happens, this is how you have to react, because you have to be ready. You never know.
So they also teach kids how to react in this. Of course, I mean, assuming that.
I mean, if someone hijacks the car and the kid is at the back, you don't want something to happen to them either.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's I don't know. It's a whole world. I mean, I moved countries, but I've never been into a place that is dangerous in that sense. So it's like.
So. Yeah, you do realize things, but people are nice, and you can still live. You just have to be conscious. I mean, you can choose to be completely paranoid and scared and not leave your house, or you can still live and do things. And I think that's what my parents tried to do, and I never felt unsafe. No.
Makes sense.
Part of the package was we get a dog, and you get a guard dog.
That was the package for you, eh? I see.
Yeah, so the choice was between maybe a Rottweiler and a German Shepherd. We got the German Shepherd.
Nice. Did you know, like, did your parents know that it was only for 4 years? So it was an end date? It was something that they already knew that it was going to end at some point?
I think they knew it was around 3 years. Then we never have the exact end date. I mean, Ireland was supposed to be 3 to 4 years. It lasted 7. So I've always heard my mom say, we know when we leave, we never know when we're coming back, because dates change, deadlines change.
Yeah.
If there's a new project, if there's no new opportunity, if there's a new opportunity that turns up, you never know what can happen.
When then you moved to Japan with 13?
So no, actually we moved back to France in between.
Okay.
Stayed again 4.5 years or so. So this was actually the hardest move for me, starting to be in the teen years. We moved halfway through the school year, so right in the middle, and to the small town Angoulême, close to Bordeaux. But it's a small town where, I mean, the kids in my class probably had known each other for 10 years. You see what I mean? So yeah, you're arriving in the middle of the school year, you're changing hemispheres. So I left summer to arrive in the dead winter. So it's all tanned and everything. No one understood how that was possible. And coming from an extremely international school where everyone spoke, French, English, whatever, everyone was mixing languages in the same conversation, to, yes, a French school, more traditional, with the times also. Although South Africa was a French school, they sort of adapted to the weather. So you'd start early, but you'd finish school very early. You'd have a very small lunch break, and then whole week, I think I probably had activities every day of the week or something after school. In France, I mean, you start at 8 and you finish at 5:30. You're exhausted. You only have your Wednesday afternoon off, and so that's when kids do activities. So it's different rhythm, trying to fit into this new atmosphere where you don't have the same mindset, you don't know the same trends. And I think it's also an age where you're trying to discover yourself, know exactly who you are, what you like. We're a little bit mean between each other at that age. It's definitely a hard age where any little thing where you stand out is, I'm not going to say bully because it was not bullying, but you're being pointed out because you don't understand this, or you don't know this, or you don't have that trend, or whatever. And so small things like the fashion, the music, things like that, I was completely outside of the loop. I didn't know. It's very, very different. And so that took a lot of adjusting. I'd say a good year and a half, before I was really able to gain trust, feel good also myself, and actually understand who my friends were and who to hang out with.
Yeah,
because the friend groups are already made also when you arrive halfway through the year.
Absolutely. And not only that, if you go to a small town from a big city, then at the end you're entering like groups that are for a long time very bubble, no, like they are their group. Exactly. And then you're trying to enter into that thingy without who are you and what are you doing here? Why did you live in South Africa? I don't know. I suppose these questions were like, what?
Yeah, but that was still okay. Why did you live in South Africa? But it's funny because there was a sort of, I can't blame them for it, but there was a sort of ignorance sometimes. And I was like, well, why are you asking that question of, what country in South Africa? Well, South Africa is a country. And are you not too tired about the time zone? And it was innocent from them, but I didn't understand why these questions were coming, because it was so obvious for me it's actually the same time zone. Right? It's like 1 hour difference, and that's it. But I get it that it was new for them also.
Makes sense. So that was the case, the first repatriation, we will talk a little bit more about
that was the first repatriation, probably the hardest.
We will talk on the second part about it a little bit more, and the whole processes of coming back home. I think it's a very regular topic on expats that I talk, that they went back home. I don't know. In your case, you were very, very young when you left France. So were you even like feeling that you were going back home, or you were considering Ireland more like the place to be? I don't know.
I don't know if I ever said, oh, this is going back home when going back to France. Maybe a little bit, although I had never lived there. The thing is, I knew the town because all my mother's family comes from there and lives there. So there was family, which I think made it easier. At least on weekends, I was surrounded by family, even though they probably had no understanding of what I was going through because they never left the city. But that probably made it feel a little bit more like home. And there was not, I don't think we made the move with this thing of it's just a passing through, like there was for South Africa, where we knew like it's not going to last forever. I can't remember, but I don't think there was that thing of this is just temporary. So it probably did feel a little bit like, well, this is going to be the new home. I don't know if I could say I'm going back, but I'm moving to France at least, and this is going to be home. Family is there, so who knows?
Yeah. It was more like, okay, for your parents also, I suppose, no? Going like, okay, now we've lived multiple years outside and now it's going back to family and this kind of stuff.
Well, it was actually, it wasn't planned because, so it was again for my father's work. My mom had stopped working with the different moves. And his family doesn't come from there. His family is from the southeast. And it's just that the company he was in has a branch in that specific city. So it wasn't my mom saying, I want to be close to the family. It was just convenient and a bit of a surprise, especially to be in such a small city after having done only capitals and bigger cities.
Can't imagine like doing very, very big cities and suddenly being in a small town. It's always a shock. Sometimes it's a good thing. It's also finding a calmer life or like a more real life. When does Japan come in this? It comes the same way, like your dad has an offer and then you leave to Japan?
Exactly.
Repeated pattern.
Yeah, repeated pattern, definitely. It's, here we go again. The difference this time is I was a little bit older.
If you liked this short video out of the full episode, you can find the link to it around here and in the description below. Of course, if you are also interested in checking out other episodes, please subscribe and like.